The night everything shattered. The crystal chandelier above cast dancing shadows across the ballroom floor. And Isabel Monroe felt like she was floating. Her engagement ring caught the light with every movement, sending rainbows across the white linen tablecloths. 200 guests filled the grand hall, all here to celebrate her upcoming wedding to Marcus Blackwell, the man every woman in the city desired. But tonight he had chosen her. "You look absolutely radiant, darling," Marcus whispered in her ear, his hand resting possessively on her waist. His cologne, expensive and subtle, mixed with the scent of roses that decorated every corner of the venue. Isabel leaned into him, her heart so full she thought it might burst. She was 28 years old, the senior curator at the prestigious Hartley Art Gallery, and about to marry into one of the wealthiest families in the state. Her parents beamed from their table near the front. Even her younger sister Vivian, usually so jealous of Isabel's success, seemed genuinely happy tonight, helping coordinate the photo slideshow that would play during dinner. "I can't believe this is real," Isabel said, squeezing Marcus's hand. "Sometimes I feel like I'll wake up and this will all be a dream." Marcus smiled, but something flickered in his eyes that Isabel couldn't quite read. "Oh, it's very real, my love. More real than you know. When dreams become nightmares." The slideshow began just as dessert was being served. Isabel watched the screen with anticipation, expecting to see photos from their relationship. Their first date at the art museum, their trip to Paris, the night Marcus proposed on the beach at sunset. The first few images were exactly that, accompanied by soft music and the gentle murmur of guests admiring their love story. Then the images changed. Isabel's breath caught in her throat. On the screen, larger than life, was a photo of Marcus. But he wasn't with her. He was with Vivian, her sister. They were kissing, his hands tangled in Vivian's blonde hair, her body pressed against his in a way that left no doubt about their relationship. The room fell silent. Someone gasped. The music continued playing, a cruel soundtrack to Isabel's destruction. More photos appeared in rapid succession. Marcus and Vivian at a hotel. Marcus and Vivian in his car. Marcus and Vivian at what looked like Isabel's own apartment, in her bed, with her favorite coffee mug visible on the nightstand. Each image was time-stamped. The affair had been going on for 8 months. 8 months of lies, of stolen moments, of betrayal so deep it made Isabel's knees buckle. "Isabel, I can explain," Marcus started, but his voice sounded hollow, distant, like it was coming from underwater. Isabel turned to find Vivian in the crowd. Her sister stood near the back of the room, tears streaming down her face, but she wasn't looking at Isabel with shame or remorse. She was looking at Marcus with desperation, with love, with the same expression Isabel had worn just moments before. "How could you?" Isabel whispered, but her voice was lost in the explosion of noise as guests began talking. Phones came out to record the scandal, and her mother let out a wail that sounded like something dying. The aftermath of betrayal. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of horror. The engagement photos, the scandal, the humiliation, it all went viral. Someone had recorded the moment Isabel saw the photos. Her face crumbling, her body swaying as if struck. That video was shared thousands of times. She became a meme, a cautionary tale. Entertainment for strangers who knew nothing of her pain. But worse than the public humiliation was what happened behind closed doors. "You need to understand, Isabel," her mother said, her voice tight with something that sounded more like annoyance than sympathy. "Marcus is willing to work through this. His family is very influential. If you make a scene, if you pursue any kind of legal action or continue this public drama, it could hurt all of us." Isabel stared at her mother in disbelief. "Hurt all of us? Mother, he cheated on me with my own sister. For 8 months. Vivian is sorry," her father interjected, not meeting Isabel's eyes. "She made a mistake. She's young. But Marcus's father has already made it clear that if this situation isn't handled quietly, there could be consequences for our business. Your father's company depends on the Blackwell contracts." The truth hit Isabel like ice water. Her family was choosing money over her. They were choosing her betrayer and her betraying sister over the daughter, who had been wronged. "So I'm supposed to just forgive them? Pretend it didn't happen?" Isabel's voice rose, cracking with emotion. We're asking you to be reasonable, her mother said. Marcus has agreed to marry Vivian instead. It's actually better this way. She's younger, more suited to the lifestyle. And you'll find someone else, someone more appropriate for your situation. Isabel felt something break inside her chest, something fundamental and irreparable. The destruction continues. Within a week, Isabel lost her job. The official reason was budget cuts, but everyone knew the truth. Marcus's family had connections everywhere, including on the board of the Hartley Gallery. They had made it clear that supporting Isabel meant losing Blackwell funding, and the gallery couldn't afford to be loyal. Her apartment, it turned out, had been a gift from Marcus, though she hadn't known it. He owned the building through one of his many corporate entities. The eviction notice came on the same day as her termination letter. Friends disappeared. Dinner invitations stopped. Phone calls went unreturned. Isabel realized with crushing clarity that the life she'd built had been constructed on foundations of sand, easily washed away the moment the tide turned. She was alone in a city that had once felt like home, now feeling like a prison of memories and shame. The stranger's offer. Isabel was packing her few remaining belongings, preparing to leave the city entirely, when a knock came at the door. She opened it to find a man she didn't recognize. He was tall, with dark hair touched with silver at the temples, and eyes that seemed to see straight through to her bones. "Miss Monroe," he said, his voice deep and calm. "My name is Gabriel Santos. I have a proposition for you." "I'm not interested in whatever you're selling," Isabel said, starting to close the door. "I'm not selling anything. I'm offering help." Gabriel held up his hands in a peaceful gesture. "I know what happened to you. I know it wasn't fair. I know you're about to leave everything behind. But I'm asking you to wait. Let me help you rebuild." "Why?" Isabel's voice was harsh with suspicion. "What do you want from me?" Gabriel's expression softened. "I want to see you rise again. I'm a venture capitalist. I invest in potential, and Miss Monroe, you have more potential than anyone I've ever met. You're brilliant, creative, and strong. What happened to you is cruel, but it doesn't have to be the end of your story." For a moment, Isabel wanted to believe him. She wanted to take his hand and let someone else carry the weight. But trust had broken her once. She wouldn't let it break her again. "Thank you, but no," she said quietly. "I need to do this alone." Gabriel nodded slowly, as if he'd expected her answer. He pulled a card from his pocket and placed it on the doorframe. "When you're ready." "Not if." "When?" "I'll be waiting." Rock bottom. Isabel left the city with $700, 2 suitcases, and a broken heart. She took a bus to a small coastal town 300 miles away, a place where no one knew her name or her story. The town was called Mercy Bay, which felt like either a promise or a cruel joke. She found work at a small bookshop called Second Chapters, run by an elderly woman named Elena Vasquez. The pay was minimum wage, barely enough to cover rent in a tiny studio apartment above a bakery. But for the first time in weeks, Isabel felt like she could breathe. "You're running from something," Elena said one afternoon. Not as a question but as a simple statement of fact. She was sorting through used books, her gnarled fingers moving with practiced efficiency. Isabel, who had been shelving poetry collections, froze. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who's done the same thing," Elena said with a gentle smile. "I came here 40 years ago, running from my own demons. Found out that you can't outrun pain. You can only learn to carry it differently." Over the following months, Elena became more than an employer. She became a mentor, a friend, and the wise presence Isabel desperately needed. They would sit on the shop's back porch during quiet afternoons, drinking tea and talking about life, love, and loss. "You want to know the secret to surviving betrayal?" Elena asked one day, her dark eyes sharp despite her age. "Please," Isabel whispered. "Don't let it make you smaller. The people who hurt you want you to disappear, to fade away, to become nothing. The greatest revenge isn't destroying them. It's becoming more than they ever imagined you could be." The seeds of transformation. 3 years passed in Mercy Bay. 3 years of working at the bookshop, of reading voraciously, of slowly piecing herself back together. Isabel was no longer the naive woman who had believed in fairy tale endings. She was harder now, sharper, but not broken. Never broken. She took online courses in business management, psychology, and art restoration. She learned about strategy, about patience, about how to read people and situations. She studied Marcus's business empire from afar, noting every move, every acquisition, every weakness. But more importantly, she learned about herself. Her worth. Her strength. Her capacity to survive. One evening, as she locked up the bookshop, her phone rang. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Hello. Miss Monroe," came a familiar deep voice. "It's Gabriel Santos. Are you ready now?" Isabel looked at her reflection in the shop window. She barely recognized the woman staring back at her. Gone was the softness, the gentle trust. In its place was someone new. Someone forged in fire. "Yes," she said. "I'm ready." "Good. Come back to the city. I have a plan, and I think you're going to like it." As Isabel hung up, she felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Anticipation. Not for revenge, though that desire still burned like coals in her chest, but for the chance to reclaim her life, to show everyone who had written her off that they had made a terrible mistake. The broken Isabel Monroe was gone. Someone new was rising from the ashes. Return of the Phoenix. 6 months after Gabriel's phone call, a woman stepped out of a sleek black car in front of the Meridian Tower, the tallest building in the city's financial district. She wore a tailored charcoal suit that screamed power and success. Her dark hair, once long and soft, was now cut in a sharp bob that framed her face like a weapon. Behind designer sunglasses, her eyes took in the city that had once chewed her up and spit her out. Isabel Monroe had returned, but not as the woman who had left. "Ready?" Gabriel Santos stood beside her, looking at the building where they were about to sign the papers that would make them business partners. His company, Santos Ventures, was one of the most successful investment firms in the country. And now, Isabel was his equal partner in a new venture. "More than ready," Isabel replied, her voice steady and cold. She had spent months preparing for this moment. Business courses, strategy sessions with Gabriel, careful research into every player in the city's social and business landscape. She had transformed herself from a curator who understood art into a businesswoman who understood power. Building the empire. "The Phoenix Initiative," Gabriel said as they sat in the newly leased office space overlooking the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows provided a view that included both the Hartley Gallery, where Isabel had lost her job, and Blackwell Tower, where Marcus ran his real estate empire. "Art restoration, investment and acquisition. We'll start by targeting undervalued properties with historical significance. Buildings that Marcus has been trying to acquire for his developments." Isabel studied the files spread across the conference table. Properties, businesses, connections. Gabriel had been busy during the 6 months she'd spent preparing to return. "You've been planning this for a long time," she observed. Gabriel met her eyes, and for the first time, she saw something vulnerable in his expression. "I've been watching you for 5 years, Isabel. Even before Marcus. I used to see you at gallery openings, art auctions. The way you talked about art, about beauty and meaning, it captivated me. But you never noticed me." Isabel felt a flutter of something she thought she'd killed, attraction. Gabriel was handsome, successful, and he had helped her without asking for anything in return. But she couldn't afford distractions. "Not now. Why didn't you ever approach me?" she asked. "Because you were happy. Or at least I thought you were. Marcus made his move before I found the courage to make mine." Gabriel's jaw tightened. "I watched him destroy you. I knew what he was doing even before the engagement party. I had investigators following him, because I was looking for a reason to warn you. But I was too late." "Why help me now?" Isabel asked, her voice softer than she intended. "Because you deserve a second chance. Because I believe in you. And maybe selfishly, because I never stopped wanting to know what might have been." The confession hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility and danger. The first move. Their first major acquisition was the historic Ashford Building, a beautiful Art Deco structure that Marcus had been trying to buy for 2 years. The current owners were an elderly couple who refused to sell to developers who would tear it down. But when Isabel and Gabriel approached with a plan to restore the building and convert it into an art center and affordable studios for artists, the couple agreed. The sale was announced in the business section of the newspaper. Isabel imagined Marcus reading it over his morning coffee, perhaps not even recognizing her name. She had reclaimed her maiden name, but was now operating under I am Castellanos, using her mother's maiden name. To anyone checking, she was a successful businesswoman from the West Coast with no connection to the city's recent past. But that anonymity wouldn't last long. She didn't want it to. The unrecognizable woman. The art gala at the Meridian Museum was the event of the season. Every important person in the city would be there, including Marcus Blackwell and his wife Vivian. Yes, they had married. Isabel had watched from afar as her sister walked down the aisle to marry the man who was supposed to be Isabel's husband. The irony wasn't lost on her. Isabel arrived at the gala on Gabriel's arm, wearing a stunning emerald gown that cost more than her entire wardrobe from her previous life. Her transformation was complete. She was thinner, her features sharper. Her hair, her makeup, her entire presence radiated confidence and success. She was unrecognizable. There they are, Gabriel murmured, nodding toward the center of the room. Isabel's eyes found them immediately. Marcus, still handsome in his tuxedo, laughing at something a colleague said. And beside him, Vivian. Her sister looked beautiful but tired. There were shadows under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide, and her smile didn't reach her eyes. Shall we? Isabel said, squeezing Gabriel's arm. They approached the group casually, joining the conversation as if they belonged there. Marcus turned to them with his practiced charm. I don't believe we've met, he said, extending his hand to Gabriel. Marcus Blackwell. Gabriel Santos Ventures. And this is my partner, I am Castellanos. Marcus's eyes slid to Isabel, and she saw the moment he tried to place her. Recognition flickered, then died. He had no idea who she was. Castellanos, Marcus repeated. I've heard that name. You recently acquired the Ashford building. That's right, Isabel said, her voice modulated to a slightly lower register than her natural tone. We're very excited about the project. Though I understand you were interested in the property as well. A flash of irritation crossed Marcus's face. Yes, well, sometimes sentimental owners don't understand the value of progress. Or sometimes they understand the value of preservation. Isabel countered smoothly. Not everything old needs to be torn down and replaced. Some things are worth saving. The double meaning wasn't lost on Gabriel, who squeezed her hand in warning. Don't reveal yourself yet, the gesture said. Be patient. Vivian had been silent throughout the exchange, but now she spoke, her voice thin and fragile. That's a beautiful dress. Where did you get it? Isabel turned to look at her sister directly for the first time in 4 years. Vivian looked back at her, and for just a second, something flickered in her eyes. Recognition? Impossible. Isabel had changed too much. Paris, Isabel replied. Sometimes you have to travel far to find exactly what you're looking for. Cracks in the foundation. Over the following months, the Phoenix Initiative became impossible to ignore. Isabel and Gabriel acquired 3 more properties that Marcus wanted, launched a successful art investment fund, and began making waves in the social circles that had once belonged exclusively to families like the Blackwells. But Isabel's strategy was more subtle than simple business competition. She had studied Marcus carefully, learned his weaknesses, his fears. She knew that his real estate empire was built on leveraged debt and connections. If those connections began to erode, if investors began to question his judgment, the whole structure could collapse. So she began planting seeds of doubt. A word here, a suggestion there. She positioned her own projects as not just better but morally superior. She emphasized restoration over destruction, community over profit, art over commerce. And slowly, the narrative around Marcus began to shift. The business community started whispering. Maybe Marcus Blackwell wasn't the visionary they thought. Maybe he was just a man who tore down beautiful things to build ugly monuments to his own ego. Unexpected complications. You're playing with fire, Gabriel said one evening as they reviewed their progress. They were in Isabel's penthouse apartment, another symbol of how far she had come. The view stretched across the entire city, and somewhere out there, Marcus was probably in his own penthouse, unaware that his empire was slowly crumbling. "I know what I'm doing," Isabel replied, pouring them both wine. "Do you?" Gabriel moved closer, his presence filling the space between them. "You're not the same woman who left this city 4 years ago. I see the way you look at victory now. It's not about rebuilding your life anymore. It's about destroying his." "He deserves it," Isabel said coldly. "Maybe. But what will you become in the process?" Gabriel's hand reached up, gently touching her face. "I don't want to lose you to this revenge, Isabel. I don't want you to sacrifice the beautiful person you were for the satisfaction of watching him fall." Isabel felt tears threaten, the first real emotion she'd allowed herself in months. That person was weak. She trusted people. She believed in love. Look where it got her. That person was kind. She was open. She saw beauty in the world. Gabriel's thumb brushed away a tear that had escaped. "I fell in love with that person, Isabel. And I'm terrified that she's gone forever." The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Isabel wanted to retreat, to rebuild her walls. But she was so tired of being alone, of being cold. "I don't know if I can be that person again," she whispered. "Then be someone new. Someone who's strong but not cruel. Someone who's careful but not closed off. Someone who can have justice without sacrificing her soul." Gabriel kissed her then, soft and patient, and Isabel felt something crack in her chest. Not breaking but opening. A small window letting light into the darkness she'd been carrying. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Good. That means you're still human." The sister's plea. The message came through an unknown email address, short and desperate. "I need to see you. Please. It's important." Ugh. Isabel stared at the message for 3 days before responding. Vivian. Her sister. The woman who had betrayed her with the man she loved. What could she possibly want? They met at a small cafe on the edge of the city, far from anywhere either of them might be recognized. Vivian arrived first, and when Isabel saw her sister, she was shocked. Vivian had always been beautiful, the golden child with perfect hair and a perfect smile. But the woman sitting at the corner table looked haunted. She wore oversized sunglasses despite being indoors, and when she removed them, Isabel saw the faint yellow-green shadow of a fading bruise around her left eye. "Thank you for coming," Vivian said, her voice shaking. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," Isabel replied honestly, sitting down across from her sister. "What do you want, Vivian?" Vivian's hands wrapped around her coffee cup, as if trying to absorb its warmth. "I need your help." "My help?" Isabel's laugh was harsh. "You have some nerve." "I know." Vivian looked up, and Isabel saw genuine fear in her sister's eyes. "I know what I did was unforgivable. I was jealous, stupid, selfish. I thought I was in love with Marcus. I thought if I could take him from you, I would finally be happy. Finally be the special one." "How did that work out for you?" Isabel asked coldly. Vivian's face crumpled. "It's a nightmare. Marcus isn't who I thought he was. He's cruel, controlling. He monitors everything I do, everyone I talk to. He uses his fists when I disagree with him. I'm trapped, Isabel. I've become everything you were, except worse because I deserve this. I earned this hell." Isabel felt a complex mix of emotions. Satisfaction that her sister was suffering. Horror at the abuse. And underneath it all, a small flicker of the love she'd once felt for her little sister. "Why come to me?" Isabel asked. "Because you're the only one strong enough to help me. I've been watching you, Isabel. I recognized you at the gala, even though you've changed. I've seen what you're doing to Marcus's business. You're beating him at his own game." Vivian reached across the table, her hand trembling. "Please, help me escape. Then you can hate me forever. But please, just help me get out." Isabel looked at her sister's hand, not taking it. This was the woman who had destroyed her life. And yet, this was also the little girl who used to follow her around, who used to braid Isabel's hair, who used to say that Isabel was her hero. I'll think about it, Isabel said finally, standing to leave. Isabel, Vivian called out, her voice breaking. I know I don't deserve your help. But please know that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Isabel walked away without looking back, but the image of her sister's bruised face stayed with her long into the night. The moral crossroads. You should help her, Gabriel said when Isabel told him about the meeting. Why? She deserves what's happening to her. No one deserves abuse, Isabel. Not even someone who betrayed you. Gabriel pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her waist. This is the moment that defines who you are. Do you become the kind of person who leaves someone in danger because they hurt you? Or do you become the kind of person who helps, even when it's hard? I hate that you're right, Isabel muttered against his chest. I know. But this is also strategic. If you help Vivian escape, you have an insider who knows all of Marcus's secrets. She can help you destroy him legally, permanently. You can have your justice without compromising your morals. Isabel pulled back to look at Gabriel. When did you become so wise? I've always been wise. You just finally started listening to me. He kissed her forehead. Besides, I have a vested interest in keeping your soul intact. I plan on spending a long time with you. The statement hung between them, full of promise and possibility. Isabel felt her carefully constructed walls crumbling. And for the first time in years, she didn't try to rebuild them. The rescue plan. The plan to extract Vivian from her marriage was complicated and dangerous. Marcus was possessive, controlling, and had resources that most people couldn't imagine. He had security teams, private investigators, and enough money to make people disappear. But Isabel had Gabriel, who had his own network of connections, and she had her own carefully cultivated allies in the business world. More importantly, she had information. Over the past year, she had been quietly investigating Marcus's business empire, and what she had found was explosive. Tax fraud, bribery, illegal property seizures, intimidation of tenants. Marcus Blackwell wasn't just an unfaithful man. He was a criminal who had used his family's wealth and power to avoid consequences for years. We do this legally, Isabel told Gabriel as they mapped out their strategy. No violence, no tricks. We give Vivian a safe place to stay, and we compile evidence of Marcus's crimes. Then we hand everything to the authorities. You've changed, Gabriel observed with a soft smile. 6 months ago, you would have wanted to destroy him personally. Isabel thought about that, about the woman she'd been when she first returned to the city. Angry, cold, focused entirely on revenge. Gabriel was right. She had changed. Not back to who she was before, but into someone new. Someone stronger but not cruel. Someone who wanted justice, not vengeance. You changed me, she said simply. Gabriel kissed her, deep and lingering. When they pulled apart, his eyes were serious. I love you, Isabel. I know this isn't the right time, and I know you might not be ready to hear it, but I need you to know. I loved you before and I love you now. Whatever you decide to do, wherever this path takes you, I'm with you. Isabel felt tears burn her eyes. I love you too. I think I have for a while now. I was just too scared to admit it. The night of liberation. They executed the plan during the annual Blackwell Foundation Charity Gala, an event that Marcus would never miss because it was crucial for his public image. While he was occupied schmoozing donors and posing for photos, Isabel and Gabriel helped Vivian pack her essentials and move to a secure location, a private apartment owned by one of Gabriel's shell corporations. Vivian was terrified, shaking as she threw clothes into suitcases. He's going to kill me, she kept repeating. When he finds out I'm gone, he's going to kill me. He won't find you, Isabel assured her, though she felt her own fear churning in her stomach. And you're going to help us make sure he can't hurt anyone ever again. Over the following weeks, Vivian provided detailed testimony about Marcus's crimes. She had access to his private files, his communications, his business dealings. She had recorded conversations where he admitted to fraud, to bribing city officials, to threatening people who got in his way. She was the perfect witness because she had been there, at his side, for 4 years. But compiling evidence was only half the battle. The Blackwell family had powerful lawyers, political connections, and a reputation that had been built over 3 generations. Taking them down would require perfect timing and overwhelming proof. The confrontation. The moment came at Marcus's annual business conference, a prestigious event where he presented his vision for the city's future. Hundreds of investors, business leaders, and politicians gathered in the grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel. Marcus stood on stage in his element, confident and charismatic, discussing his plans for new developments that would transform the city. Isabel felt tears burn her eyes. "I love you too. I think I have for a while now. I was just too scared to admit it." The night of liberation. They executed the plan during the annual Blackwell Foundation Charity Gala, an event that Marcus would never miss because it was crucial for his public image. While he was occupied schmoozing donors and posing for photos, Isabel and Gabriel helped Vivian pack her essentials and move to a secure location, a private apartment owned by one of Gabriel's shell corporations. Vivian was terrified, shaking as she threw clothes into suitcases. "He's going to kill me," she kept repeating. "When he finds out I'm gone, he's going to kill me." "He won't find you," Isabel assured her, though she felt her own fear churning in her stomach. "And you're going to help us make sure he can't hurt anyone ever again." Over the following weeks, Vivian provided detailed testimony about Marcus's crimes. She had access to his private files, his communications, his business dealings. She had recorded conversations where he admitted to fraud, to bribing city officials, to threatening people who got in his way. She was the perfect witness because she had been there, at his side, for 4 years. But compiling evidence was only half the battle. The Blackwell family had powerful lawyers, political connections, and a reputation that had been built over 3 generations. Taking them down would require perfect timing and overwhelming proof. The confrontation. The moment came at Marcus's annual business conference, a prestigious event where he presented his vision for the city's future. Hundreds of investors, business leaders, and politicians gathered in the grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel. Marcus stood on stage in his element, confident and charismatic, discussing his plans for new developments that would transform the city.